Okay, everyone, welcome to the final session of this program on student recruitment and admissions. We've heard a very wide range of discussions and ideas about how the market might be changing, what the trends are. And we've got two further presenters to try and help us understand exactly what might be happening in this particular sector and what kind of solutions people can provide. The first of our speakers is Andréanne Orsier, who's the Associate Director, Higher Education with YouthSight. Her previous career has seen her in India, working inside WPP at the kind of level of polling and research that I absolutely love. So I'm looking forward to it. She also speaks 3 languages, which puts all of us to shame. So, Andrea, we're looking forward to your comments, and then we'll take some questions and discussion afterwards. So, Andrea from YouthSight. Okay.
Okay, so I think it's quite good that the last presentation wasn't data heavy, because that's going to have a fair few data points. So as Neil mentioned, so I'm Andrea, and I've just, contrary to most people here, I'm fairly new to HE, so I just joined YouthSight at the back end of last year, so you'll have my fresh perspective, hopefully, on the sector. And today I'm going to talk about the prospectus, and I think it fits quite nicely in this theme, because obviously it's a key recruitment tool for you. And we'll just talk about whether it's dead, whether it's worth your money or not. So looking at the Havas website, what I found out was there's about 1 million prospectuses that are dispatched each year, so just by Havas, and obviously that doesn't really take into consideration the prospectus that you give away at fairs, that people come directly to you for. So I'm pretty sure that actually that's quite a small number in comparison to what's actually used each year. And as you're probably aware, they're not cheap to produce. So obviously we talk about money. I actually don't know how much a prospectus costs. Like, is it £2, £3? And that probably doesn't include when you have to send it to people. Resources. So we know we do quite a lot of work with universities on their prospectus, and we know quite a lot of stakeholders are involved. And obviously time takes months and months and months to put it together. So overall, you may start thinking, is it worth it? Especially considering this. So it's a bit of a sci-fi title. So it's a bit of, just to put a bit of drama, because it's the end of the day and you've had a fair few sessions. So is it the rise of the paperless age? So if you think about young people, and young people that you know, or yourself, or your students, think about all of these books, just money, reading a newspaper, taking photographs, paying bills. Everything now is pretty much done online, so everything is paperless. You do everything from your mobile. We all have contactless payment cards now, e-readers, tablets. We pay everything online. It's basically, apart from receiving the odd bills, you don't use paper. We have a State of the Youth Nation product at YouthSight that just looks at youth, and it's a product that's looking at attitudes and their attitudes and behavior and opinions towards generally trends. And we've asked them, so it's people under 25, when you read for pleasure, how do you read? And over 50% of them choose digital platforms to read. And it's even more striking when you look at newspaper. So how do they consume the news, those young people? So if you look at news websites, television, applications, social media, and at the end of the tail, our good old newspaper. So then that prompts the question, why do we print prospectuses? Is it a commodity? Is it useful? Is it just nice to have? People using it? Are they influenced by it? Do they think it's important? Is it worth your money, more importantly? Especially when you see this, so you can order a lot of prospectus in less than 5 minutes, so I've done it myself. You just go to a website, type all the subjects, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to have 20 prospectuses. So again, is that a waste of your resources? So what I'm going to address today is that, do your students actually care? Is it worth your time? And I think you'd be relieved to know that they do. They do care, and it's worth it. And I'm going to go into it in a bit more detail. But before I get started and get really into the heart of the project, or the presentation, sorry, I just want you to consider the student journey conversion model. So my background is to work with P&G, and what we used to have, like in every single one of our presentations, was path to purchase. So obviously it's a bit different, because from a P&G angle, it was, I sell shampoo, how do I get someone who will buy shampoo to be my brand buyer? So ultimately, it was all going, like the final goal was how to get more people. It was all about penetration. And actually, realized joining the HE sector that it's fairly similar. Of course, with different implications. If I get someone to buy my shampoo, if they don't like it, I can bin it, I can give it away. It's just going to be £2. It's not going to be the end of the world. Obviously, the implication for HE in converting a student has a much bigger impact on everyone's lives. But ultimately, what you want to do is convert and recruit students. And what we came up with is a way to visualize that conversion. And I'm just using that because I'm going to use specific stage of that conversion later in that presentation. So the first stage would be awareness. So people deciding, do I want to go to university, yes or no? The second stage, as we go further down the funnel, is consideration. It's when people know they want to go to university and they start thinking, they start building their consideration set. Probably they start picking up all those prospectuses at UCAS fairs and decided, which one should I actually pay more attention to? The second one is the evaluation. It's probably when they're more likely to go to open days, so they've already narrowed down their consideration set a little bit. Then shortlist, and by shortlist we mean what do I put on my UCAS form, and finally selection, which would be the firm choice. So at YouthSight, we've picked out 3 touch points which we think are the most important. That is up for debate, of course. The consideration stage, because of course if you're not part of that consideration list, well, it will be really hard to just be front of mind and therefore be there when they decide what to put on their UCAS form, shortlist, or what firm choice to go for, and that's the selection. For the purpose of this presentation, while we have data on every single stage, I'm aware of time, so we'll just focus on consideration. And also, just something to bear in mind, we know that will only be for prospective undergraduates with no discrimination of fee status. And while I think the trends that you see in the presentation will be very different for the postgraduate market, again, in interest of time, we're just focusing on the undergraduate one. So take 4 prospective undergraduates, and let's focus on one. Let's call her Rachel. Rachel decided that she wanted to go to university, so she had this consideration stage at the moment. And she got a lot of things in her mind. It's a big decision, of course, choosing which university to go to. And there's a lot of influences from people. We're talking teachers, parents, peers, alumni, ambassadors to different platforms, such as websites, blogs, league ranking, and of course, you know the title of this presentation, the prospectus. And what I'm going to do first is I'll show you whether they used or not, and you can see here that Rachel actually does use printed prospectuses as much as open day and family and parents advice when she's at the early stage of her HE journey. You'd expect to see university website and league table at first because they're very easy to access. It's just the click of a mouse and I can see that. But it's already quite striking to see that printed prospectuses are used just as much as parents and just as much as your open day. And I'd like to highlight here that the online prospectus, although features here, is already less used compared to its paper cousin. So we know it's used, but I've started that presentation telling you all about the rise of the paperless age. So it wouldn't be fair to just not talk about social media and just compare it a little bit, because as we all know, HEIs now all have a YouTube channel, Facebook page, they have bloggers, they have Twitter. So do prospective students actually use social media, and how does that compare to the printed prospectus? So 33% use the prospectus I've mentioned. It's nowhere near as high for social media. That is not to say not to use it, because obviously it will have different purposes. So it's important for your brand awareness, it's important for your communication to be out there. But in terms of usage, at the beginning of their HE journey, the printed prospectus trumps them. We've taken a bit of a closer look at prospectuses as well, just because obviously we've got online and printed, and they also do prefer a printed version to an online version, with about 2 out of 3 respondents being keen to have paper in their hand, and almost 50% of them exclusively using or preferring to use the printed version. So we know they're used, but are they actually important? Are they deemed important by your prospective student? Because again, they could just be a commodity. And here you can see, I think there's a bill missing. Yeah, there's a bit of thing missing, so you might not be able to see the number. But we've asked people, we have prospective students, how important the prospectus was in the decision about which university to choose, and that's the percentage of very, very important across the year. So you can see it's increased since 2007, and it's never been as high as it is, with 32% considering your prospectus very important in the decision making. So we know it's used, and we know it's influenced, and I'm really sorry because there used to be a veil over it so you could actually see properly the data. And now I'm looking at influence, and again, so we've got open day, league tables, I'm reading it out because I don't think you can read it, printed prospectus, the university website, the online prospectus, and family and peers advice. And you can see here that they are influential because they're here, right here, with the third highest influencer. So again, that's a nice story for you, and it means that you're not wasting your money on producing them because they're used, they're important, and they're influential. I just want to quickly catch your attention here, so you can't really see, but the open days at 68%. And that just gives you a glimpse as how influential those are. So it's not the topic of this presentation, and probably could be the topic of another standalone presentation, but something to bear in mind as well, that it's another thing, another marketing mechanic or recruitment mechanic that you need to get right. If you remember about the early stage that I've mentioned, so I've mentioned those 3 different stages, and what I wanted to give you is a bit of perspective as to how the usage and influence of prospectus evolves through that conversion tunnel. So if you remember, consideration, shortlist, and selection, the usage goes down, as you'd expect. So, I think the prospectus is quite there at the beginning of the journey, trying to find out, just flick through it and understand and see what they want to find out more about. But when you look at the influence, and that's the influence amongst those who use the prospectus, it actually goes up. So it means that the less they're used throughout that conversion journey, but the more influential they get. So getting your prospectus right will be key, not only to justify the investment that you put in producing them, but also to try and just convert those random applicants to become your students. So we're going back to Rachel now, and now we know that they use it and they like it, they want it. So what do they expect from your prospectus? Then how do they need to look, or what do they need to feature? So first of all, printed prospectuses are liked for practical reasons. So again, here you can't really properly see, but they just quite simply like having a physical copy. They think it's easy to read. They can put notes on it. They can compare it. And I think it relates to marketing strategies that are a bit more maybe accepted for other sectors like FMCG or like bigger goods. So I think it's if you think about it, it's probably the biggest important decision they will have made in their life. It's a lot of money now as well. I personally I didn't have to pay 9K, and I think up to that I didn't buy a house or anything. So for me, it would have been the biggest expense that I would have made in my life. So I think there's an aspect of that justify why they want something tangible. They want a paper, they want a book, they want to be able to feel that investment that they're going to make. So now, just to see if you're listening to me, a little quiz, if you don't mind. So what do you think people, the prospective student, use prospectus for? Is it to find out about the university or find out about the course more? So maybe raise your hand, university. And raise your hand for course. Yeah, so it's 50-50. And actually, it's only 1 in 10 use it to find out exclusively about the university. That's not to say don't talk about the university, of course, but it means that the content about the course is really important. And actually, we know that from all the research that we do, whether ad hoc or leveraging the data that we have off shelf, is that the course is generally a key driver of choice in that journey. So it needs to be right in your prospectus, it needs to be communicated properly. And a little bit, a step further in understanding what needs to feature in the prospectus. So again, I've just put those 3 different stages for you. And just starting with the top, basically the top 10 information that they expect or they want to find in the prospectus. So at the bottom, you've got things like the social life, the employability, the reputation. You've got fees and fundings that make a bit of a comeback towards the end when it's that firm choice. Can I actually afford to go to university? Can I afford to live in this city? But what you need to remember, and if there's one thing you need to remember from that presentation, is that regardless of what stage they are, the 3 information that prospective students need from your prospectus are the entry requirements, the course content structure, and information about the accommodation. So if you need to focus on getting something right, it's those 3 things, because that's what they're looking for throughout their whole conversion journey. But I've spoken a lot, so maybe you're a bit tired of hearing my voice. So why don't you hear it from Rachel? So what we have at YouthSight is we do have the capability to ask our panelists to contribute and ask and film themselves and just give us their perspective on key questions. So we've asked them about prospectuses, how do they use it, what they like and dislike.
Having a printed prospectus really allowed me to have all the information in one place and allowed me to read it at my own leisure whenever I wanted to.
I just like having the physical item itself to look through, and I feel the presentation of the prospectus gives you more of a feel of maybe the ethos or the atmosphere of the university.
Personally, I much preferred having a printed out prospectus, as I found it much easier to compare different prospectuses when I had them all laid out in front of me as opposed to different tabs on the internet. I found that much easier.
I do enjoy having a printed prospectus, as it is sometimes easier to flick through pages of a book than I scroll online. An online prospectus, however, sometimes prospectuses can be too heavy, and if you get too many of them, then it becomes a burden on you like to carry, and so a decent sized prospectus, a physical one, is what I'd prefer.
When I was looking through prospectuses, I found maybe 5-6 pages of information actually relevant and useful to me, so having that whole book was just a waste, really.
I used the prospectuses in order to allow myself to compare universities and their different facilities. I did this with my parents, so we'd pick up a prospectus usually before we went to an open day, and we'd know what we needed to look for.
I put them against each other and I compared each university's prospectus. I then annotated it for the things that I liked about one university and the things that I liked about a different one, and then I used that to come to my conclusion of which one were my best options.
I used them by reading through the whole prospectus and then rereading what applied to me repeatedly. I would look at them with both family and friends and we would discuss it, and I could then highlight key information, things that both concerned me and interested me about both the university and the courses that I was interested in.
The most annoying thing about the prospectuses was the fact that they all claim to be the best. We're the best, we can do this, we can do that, we've won this award, we've won that award, and everybody seems to have won awards.
So I'd say the most annoying thing would be having about 20 different degrees in the prospectus, so it makes it quite chunky, and really you're not even using 3/4 of the books. It's pretty much a waste of paper.
It was difficult, obviously, trying to flick to and from the courses that I'd actually was interested in. I'd rather have just had a single prospectus for that subject and something that I'd requested rather than just a complete index of like everything.
The most useful thing about a prospectus is that it keeps all of the information in one place. So you have every single aspect of the university you want to choose, all of the information about courses and sports and other aspects of the academic life and social life, all in one place.
The most useful thing about them was the fact that you could look at multiple prospectuses at the same time, rather than just having one up on the computer screen so you can compare courses.
They allowed me to look at all the information at my leisure whenever I wanted to. And it had everything in one place.
The most useful thing about them was they contained like loads of relevant information and actual pictures of like things that you're going to be doing on the course and like accommodation and maps of the area as well, which kind of made you want to go to the open days.
So from this you can already see that it won't be easy to nail it, mostly because some people, I was trying to find it in, where is it? Oh yeah, thank you. Because you've got different requests, like things required. So you've got people that say that was really annoying because it was heavy and there was a lot of information, and then you have people that were like, it was great because there was so much information. So I think striking the right balance between matching their expectations, keeping your true to your identity as well, won't be an easy one. And what we find from our research as well is that generally things that you might not even think about, stuff like quality of the paper or a different color or something that actually resonate with them or actually has the opposite effect. That's it. Just a glimpse of where the data is sourced from, just if you're interested about sample size. It's about 17,000 people over 2 years. So it's coming from our H.E. Markham's dashboard. And basically what I wanted to tell you about is 3 things if you have to remember about this presentation. So is that your prospectuses are used and needed. You'll be glad to know, hopefully. They are influential, and they're not just about the uni. So they're worth your investment, and you really need to nail your content and try to get that balance between right information and relevance. And that's it.